I'm Lisa Frustino. I'm chair of the English department, and I'm very excited today to have these distinguished alumni back to talk to us about graduate school. Our MC for today's panel will be Ashley Chaliwa, who is a current English major and honors student at Eastern, and the department intern who's editing our newsletter this semester. Ashley.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. This is the English at Work alumni panel on graduate studies, and I'm just going to take a moment and introduce everybody that's here. And when your introduction comes up, if you could just raise your hand so everybody knows who you are, that would be great. Lauren is the first seat, but she's not here yet, so we'll introduce her last. So let's start with Ashley Parker. Ashley Parker graduated from Eastern in 2014 with a BA in English. She is currently finishing her master's degree in linguistics at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. Yay! At IU, she serves as president of the linguistics department's graduate students. There we go. Ashley holds a graduate assistantship as an editor of The Linguist List, where she also contributes to research projects involving the documentation of under-resourced languages, including Burmese, Chitino, and Yiddish. So that's Ashley. And then we are going to follow that up with, I know my notes are all messed up. Christian Galicchio graduated from Eastern in 2013 with a BA in English and is currently pursuing an MA in English Literature at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, anticipating graduating in spring 2016. Previously, he has worked as a screenplay reader for the Weinstein Company and a teaching assistant in his first year of graduate school. He currently works as an instructor of record at UMass Boston, teaching a 200-level literature class while working on his master's thesis, focusing on 19th century Christmas fiction. Our fourth panelist is Angela DeLella, who graduated from Eastern in 2014 with a BA in English and a minor in writing. She is currently working on a master's degree in creative writing with a concentration on fiction at the New School in Manhattan. At Eastern, she was heavily involved with the production of Eastern Exposure, Eastern's literary magazine, and remains active with it via its cover art, while branching out and working on the New School's graduate literary magazine, Lit, and art for the Bombay Review, an independent literary magazine from India. Our fifth panelist is Roseanne Carlo. She graduated from Eastern in 2008 with a BA in English and Political Science. In 2015, she earned her PhD in Rhetoric, Composition, and the Teaching of English at the University of Arizona. Roseanne is currently an assistant professor of English at the College of Staten Island, which is in the CUNY system, where she teaches first-year composition, upper division writing classes, and courses for future teachers in the MA program. Her research interests include rhetorical theory, ethos and voice, place-based writing, and community-university partnerships. Our sixth panelist is Melissa Dwelly, who graduated from Eastern in 2012 with an honors BA in English and a minor in writing. As an undergraduate, she was involved as a writing tutor and liked composition theory and rhetoric. She earned her MED in psychology with a concentration in student personnel administration at Springfield College in 2014. She currently works at a Massachusetts community college and manages a dual enrollment program, international admissions, and electronic communications. And then our last panelist, Samuel Lissi, graduated from Eastern in 2013 and then attended UConn School of Law as a candidate for the Juris Doctor degree with an anticipated graduation date of May 2016, so it's coming up. He has also been admitted to the Masters of Law program and will obtain an LLM in Intellectual Property and Information Governance in December of 2016. Outside the classroom, Samuel serves as a corporate director and founding member to a legal technology corporation headquartered in Hartford. In his free time, Samuel enjoys creative writing and the company of his fellow Eastern Rugby alumni. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a round of, if each of you could just elaborate a little bit on your bio and say what you're doing today with your English degree from Eastern, how it led you to graduate school, and if you're already working in your field, you could also include how Eastern and grad school led you to success there. So we'll just go in a line. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm currently finishing as Ashley said, I'm finishing my master's at Indiana University right now, and I'll be done in May. So I'm not working in my field yet, but I do hold a graduate assistantship where I work in editing. And as soon as I got hired there, I knew that it was because I had an English degree and all of the experiences that I took part in at Eastern. So I work as an editor. So I actually, even though my degree's in linguistics, I'm doing a lot of things that actually I learned more at Eastern than what I'm actually doing in linguistics. So I definitely think that all the experiences that I could do here in the English major, for example, I was a writing tutor, I got to work as a TA, are super helpful to me now and will definitely be helpful to me in the future. So.
Hi, I'm Christian. I'm currently finishing up my master's at UMass Boston, like she said. This is actually me being here as avoiding writing my thesis. So that's looming over me. So right now at UMass, I teach one section of a 200-level English class. It's called The Art of Fiction, and this is my second semester teaching it. It's very interesting, also terrifying to be called professor. I feel like that's something I'm not used to. But I think that Eastern really helped me out with what I'm doing right now, mostly with all the literature classes I took, and I think it was Professor McNeil, but also Professor Clement Ferrand, who encouraged me to go to grad school. And so yeah.
Okay. All right. So I guess technically I am working in my field. Like I'm working for the journalism and design department at the new school while I'm going there. And they needed someone who could copy edit was what they were looking for. So I worked on the Eastern exposure for 4 years. So basically I went in with 4 copies. You know, the 4 years I had been here, the 4 copies, and said, I copy edited this, which worked for me. It got me a job. So, I mean, that's about it. But, I mean, I'm still finishing. I'm only in my first year at the new school. So hopefully, you know, I'll be copy editing somewhere bigger when I graduate or something else. So, yeah. Here,
Oh, hey. Is this on? All right. So I am in my first year as a faculty member at College of Staten Island CUNY. With my work here, I've double majored in English and political science. I took a lot of classes in Rec Comp, the ones that were available at the time, and in creative writing. I think those were sort of the 2 areas that I took a lot of classes in. And I was also in the honors program, worked on an honors thesis with Dr. Ferrucci. He was my advisor for that. And I think that experience, the honors program and that experience really helped me transition into grad school because it was a sustained paper. I think it was like 20 pages or something, and at the time that was like, whoa. Yeah. But, you know, now in terms of grad school, I taught all 7 years that I was there. I taught first year writing, basic writing, honors, regular level. I taught an advanced composition class, 300 level class there, and I also worked in a writing center and directed a writing center at a high school. So that was over a period of 7 years. And then now in my current position, I teach a range of classes, which I love. I like kind of working with different students because it's different populations. You know, first year students are really different from advanced, and then grad students. So I have a range that I work with, which I love. And yeah, it's really, I love my job. So, and I see how my experience at Eastern got me there. And people continued to mentor me through that process after I graduated. Susan's here, Steve, Lauren, Dr. Lou, you know, so Rita Melanchik, a lot of people. So it's really good to be here and to talk with you all today. I mean, it's like Friday afternoon, you all are here.
Hey, round of applause.
Like really, like legit, thank you for coming. Like that's so great.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I was also in the honors program, so my curriculum here was very writing and research intensive, which definitely helped me in graduate school. I was also a writing tutor and a peer advisor, so that gave me a little bit of exposure to the administrative side of higher education. I had a lot of angst when I was preparing to graduate. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go in the faculty direction and get a PhD, probably in rhetoric and composition, or go to the administrative side of higher education. I really wanted a job, and I knew that there was a lot of job opportunities in the administrative side of things, and I wasn't really sure if I would be willing to relocate had I gone directly and got my PhD. So that was a lot of my logic going into higher education, the administrative side. Right now I work in admissions at Springfield Technical Community College. I do a lot of different things. My title is Admissions Communication Specialist, so definitely a lot of my previous work in undergrad with writing helps come up with communication plans. I do electronic communication, so emails, text messages. In terms of recruitment, I also do, as was mentioned, international admissions, and I run a dual enrollment program too, and so much of that involves marketing, communicating, recruitment. So a lot of the skills that I learned, especially the communication part, from my English degree, definitely bring into my job today.
Hi, I'm Sam Lisi. I took a little different route than the rest of my co-panel here, going to law school, but I feel my writing and reading skills that I took from this education have been just as influential. I have to read and write every single day. Although it's a different form, the same rules apply. And I think in the field, the most that I use it is we're going through a phase of web development, and content is huge. And if you can't write content that's correct and accurate and conveying messages and short little things, it really doesn't have the same effect. So I feel like the writing skills I took from Eastern have contributed to that. Legal writing is a completely different animal, but without, learning the basics, you would be nowhere. I think the most influential thing was that all of the fiction classes I took here allow me to get outside of that legal nonsense. So when I'm done, writing and reading briefs, the books from Terracchio's contemporary lit class are still on my shelf. I read them all the time. So I think it's a good break from what I'm doing.
All right, awesome. So now what's up next is Dr. Claremont Front's English 202 students actually came up with some questions for you guys, for all of you. So I'll be asking 4 for all of you, and then they had 1 specific one for Sam. So we'll just go in a line again, just to make it easy. So the first question they came up with was, did you feel concerned that grad or law school interprets a degree from Eastern as a state school differently than private schools?
Well, I definitely had that concern at first, but I've definitely found that it's not the case at all. I think that I'm currently in the process of, I was in the process of applying to PhD programs, and I definitely find that they're much more interested in your future, in your potential, in what you plan to do than what you've done in the past. And I don't think that in any way they interpreted my degree from Eastern as differently than they would from a private school at all.
Yeah, I'd agree. I went from a public university to a public university, so I don't think they cared that much. I think that they didn't interpret it any differently, but I also think that they place a much higher emphasis on writing samples and recommendations than perhaps degrees. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I'm about in the same boat. I was really worried about it, and I think they were looking more at our writing samples, and even, I don't know if you guys had to submit a resume, but they were more interested in what was on my resume, like the internships and the Eastern exposure and all of that, than, just seeing that it was a state school and freezing me out. So it worked out. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I'm in like the no zone. I feel like if someone is gonna judge you for going to a state school, they're probably like elitist and/or classist, and you probably don't want to have a beer with them, like at the end of the day, really, just in life. So, in terms of my own experience, my last year of grad school was asked to serve on an admissions committee for incoming students into our program, and never in those conversations was it like, where'd they go to school? Like, that wasn't, like, on our minds. We were looking at their CVs, we were looking at their experiences, their the way that they crafted their cover letters, the way that they, represented themselves, the kind of match that they made with our program in terms of, like, our mission and the courses that we had and the people that we had there. You know, could we see this person working with us for 2 to 7 years? And it comes down to more to that, to who you are, than necessarily where you came from. We want to have a beer with you, not know what school you went to on some level. Okay.
I guess I'm going to be the voice of dissent. During my summers in grad school, I worked for a law firm, and they wouldn't look at applicants from Quinnipiac. It was, nope, if you're from Quinnipiac, I'm throwing you out. So that kind of mentality definitely exists. When I applied to grad school, I applied to 3 schools. Central was my backup, Springfield College, and UConn. UConn has what's called a HESA program. It's Higher Education and Student Affairs. It's very small, and if at the time when I was applying, the people that were in the program were from very prestigious schools, and with a sprinkling of UConn schools, because it's a state school, you have to have some taxpayer students in it. So I knew that going in, even applying, I was at a disadvantage because I was from Eastern, not UConn, and that I would be looked over as an Eastern student. So I definitely think that kind of mentality does exist more often in those elitist circles that was mentioned. So I'm actually glad that it didn't work out with UConn and that I went the track that I went. And that I was, valued for the skills that I brought to the table rather than the name brand of my degree. Because I think my degree was great and that I had a lot of skills from that degree that I could bring to the table. So, yeah.
I've never been slowed down after having go to Eastern. I've never met anyone who looked twice at anything I was applying for or trying to do because I went to Eastern. It's more about what you can do as an individual than where you've been to get your education. So it's more important the skills that I took from Eastern than the fact that I went to Eastern, if that makes sense. I understand the law firm thing, but that has a lot more to do with where you did your law degree than where you did your undergraduate degree. So if I went to Eastern and then went to Harvard Law, you'd have any law firm in the world looking at you. It doesn't matter where you went. And the law schools don't really care as much about the undergraduate institution for admissions as much as they do about your LSAT score, the things you did outside the classroom, that kind of thing. So it plays a role getting your foot in the door somewhere, but what you do once you're there says a lot more than the name on the building.
Great. Okay. Their next question was, how did your English degree from Eastern prepare you for grad school?
Well, as I talked about, I work as an editor right now, so I think that not only got me the job, but it's actually helped me throughout my entire time there. And just the classes that I was able to take here. I'm studying linguistics right now, so I'm actually totally separated from an English department. We have no contact with them. We don't work with them at all. But all of the classes that I got to take with Dr. Tapia, and all of the work that I got to do with her really, really prepared me. And as I said, I'm linguistics, I'm not in an English department, so I wasn't totally prepared for the content of it. It's just a totally different animal than English. But I definitely, the experiences that I had here in the department definitely taught me how to be a really good student, and that's really I think the best way I could have possibly prepared to go into my program.
Okay, great. Before we move on with this question, I'm just going to introduce Lauren. This is Lauren Biatoa. She graduated from Eastern in 2012 with a BA in English and a secondary teaching certificate. She is in her 3rd year of teaching 8th grade English at a middle school in New Milford, Connecticut. Currently, Lauren is midway through her full-time year-long master's degree program in media literacy and digital culture with a concentration in children, health, and the media at Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut. And right now we're answering the question, how did your English degree from Eastern prepare you for grad school? So we'll go all the way around and then back.
Oh, okay. Okay, first of all, I'm really happy to be here right now. in Willimantic. It's definitely a trip down memory lane. Okay, so my English degree prepared me immensely for everything that I've done after graduating from Eastern. So first of all, I took off a few years, and my graduate degree is in media literacy, so it's about analyzing, evaluating, and creating responsible media for teens, adults, and children. And basically, I mean, it's been a really interesting experience because especially at Eastern, I got the opportunity to choose what I wanted to analyze. So obviously I analyze literature, but also comes with, I analyze music, I remember in a few of my classes, and television and film. And so it's really been a really fluid transition into the program because I've been doing the same thing. So I feel like the analytical skills at Eastern with the English department really set me up for that at Sacred Heart.
All right, thank you.
So I think my degree really helped me prepare for grad school, though I don't think I would be studying literature if I didn't get a degree in English. But the reading and writing skills, definitely important. And I think most importantly was the senior seminar for me, which was heavy reading and also heavy writing. And I freaked out about a 20-page paper while I was here. And then I didn't realize going into grad school I had to do that like 3 times a semester for a number of years. So I think that was the most helpful for me.
Yeah, how my English degree prepared me. Well, I already mentioned the copy editing thing, and I think it also gave me an advantage because Eastern had such a wide variety of classes that you could take that I got to take stuff I was really interested in and focus on that, but I also got to branch out, which sort of has given me an advantage, I feel, because sometimes I come at, in my writing classes or in my lit classes, I sort of come at things from a different direction, like from a literary crit background, or even linguistics sometimes, if you can believe that, actually. Linguistics was a tough class for me. So I think it helped prepare me just to think about literature in a different way that some people are still learning, you know, to apply creative writing to literature thoughts or literature thoughts to their writing, if that makes sense. It makes sense to me. So, yeah, it prepared me really well, I think.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I think Eastern prepared me well for graduate school, particularly the work that I did in the Writing Center and seeing other teachers teach. At the time, we didn't really when I was here, we didn't have a writing center. And so I would sit in on classes with DeRosa and Ferrucci and just see how they taught students. And that was very helpful to me because then I had to teach students the year after I graduated. So that modeling was work that I actually needed to see. My thesis, the honors program, actually, this is like a post-Eastern experience, but I think I got to teach StepCap here the year after I graduated. And that was really formative for me because those students taught me how to be a good teacher. And they also taught me the kind of students I wanted to work with. So even though that was a post-graduation experience, that was really formative for me. And then, of course, the mentorship that I continued to receive from people, people still cared for me even after I graduated. So that was also very important. I think that care is actually rare these days. I think at some universities, it's sort of turn out the degrees and not really mentor students, and so I think that is a distinction that Eastern should really be valued for on that level. Yeah.
Eastern definitely prepared me for grad school. I think I was almost too prepared, over-prepared. So my background was very writing intensive. I had an honors thesis as well as my senior capstone thesis, so I was very strong in terms of research and writing and all of that. I think the most difficult part of my graduate degree was that I had a lot of practicum experience required. So it was learning how to balance, the research and writing with working at the Writing Center, in addition to interning in financial aid and admissions, in addition to being the graduate assistant at a student success center, learning, and all at the same time. So learning how to balance that was definitely something that I had to adapt to. I think one of the most important experiences I had that shaped me a lot was being a writing tutor. And I use a lot of the skills that I learned from that in my work today. So there's this idea of you're having a conversation with somebody, you're taking a look at their writing, and you're learning how to articulate how is this, what are the strengths of this writing, what are the weaknesses, what can we do to make your message stronger. And I have those kind of conversations in the administrative field all the time. Just earlier this week, I was sitting down with my supervisor. We were drafting a communication to the guidance counselors in the area about the dual enrollment program I run, and it was like an impromptu tutoring session. So, brainstorming about what the ideas were behind this, how best to get this message across. And I definitely, like I said, use those skills all the time. So that really sticks out to me from undergrad.
It's interesting for me because I graduated from Eastern and thought I had this English degree. I knew I could be the greatest writer ever. So I get to law school and I have to write an appellate brief, a 50-page appellate brief for this actual moot court thing that I had to do in front of judges. And I get an email the night before I'm supposed to argue this case, and they say, you got to redo the brief. It's so flowery, and it's like I'm reading a story. It's not like you need to condense it. If you can say it in 2 words, don't say it in 10. So that was a learning curve for me, that I couldn't write everything as if it were fiction. But the reading is what I think is the most valuable skill I took from here, because when you're reading 500 to 600 pages of litigation a week, you need to have that endurance. And I feel like some of the more difficult classes, some of the older literature that really took time to work through and process, prepared me for that type of marathon in law school. The rhetorical theory stuff was also a huge help. Every time I run into one of those issues, it's like, thank God I took that class in undergrad. But yeah, I think the reading is the big one I took, but the writing was, once I was able to tailor it, was just as valuable. All
right, great. Their next question is, what are you planning on doing with your grad degree? If you're already working in your field, you might just want to say how it's helping you, or how you're going to continue with it, or something like that. But that's their next question. What are you planning on doing?
All right. Okay. So currently I teach 8th grade English in New Milford, Connecticut. And basically, the media literacy program has really prepared me in a sense. So I've been teaching for a few years, and it kind of came naturally for me because of being a writing tutor here and taking on a lot of work during my student teaching. And so basically, it's just kind of made me a more well-rounded teacher, I would say. Everything is kind of connected in a very weird, serendipitous way, though. For instance, at the beginning of my graduate program in September, we were talking about Brave New World and 1984, and how basically the world is kind of shaping out to be more like Brave New World than 1984, because it's not like Big Brother is looming over you. It's more like everybody's so concerned with their device and being on, in that regard, they're more concerned with like the pleasure that they get from that than they are with like the looming fear of like a dystopia. And at that time, I was teaching dystopian fiction, so it really weaved in nicely with what I've been teaching. I was taking an ethics class. It was media ethics, and also teaching a genocide unit at the same time. So, it's just given me a really well-rounded background in everything, and helped me explain things to my students. In the future, so I can definitely keep teaching. I do love teaching. I love my students. I also have been looking at jobs at nonprofits, and also in the future, probably a PhD program in either media studies or rhetoric and composition.
Well, I'll keep it simple. I'm going into the PhD program at UConn in Speech and Hearing Sciences next year, so that's where I'll be. So I hope to teach at the university level, but I'll be closer to the job search in like 5 years. So
I have to get the degree first, which I don't know. Talk to me in like a month. But I am actually in the beginning process of looking at PhD programs, but I hope to continue teaching at the university level and hopefully at UMass Boston still. So they hire a lot of people. Pray I'm one of them.
Well, I guess the ideal, since I'm getting it in creative writing, I'd love to write and be an author, and that would be great. But when I was researching getting a degree and all of that, I had found something I kept on finding was that a lot of video game companies like Nintendo, Konami, Capcom really look out for people with writing degrees, and I thought, what could be cooler than working at a video game company and helping develop stories and merchandise and that kind of thing. So that would also, for me, be a really cool option. So.
Yeah. I live the dream. I'd like to get tenure someday. And then I think that I guess maybe some of the things that I'm really glad about in terms of my job. I'm glad to be back on the East Coast. I was in Arizona for 7 years, and it felt like it was like exile in the desert. But there were a lot of lovely things about Arizona, but I'm glad to be back on the East Coast. And I think that, I work at a state school, which I really wanted to work at a state school. We have a high population of minority and first-generation students. We have open admissions in the CUNY system to an extent. There's a lot of hoops through that when I say that, but yeah. And, I really wanted to work at a school that would value me as a researcher and a teacher, which they do. And I wanted to work in a department that would respect me and allow me to teach and develop a range of classes, which so far has been the case. So I just want to stay there forever. If they could just attach me to a wall, that'd be great. So hopefully that works out.
What am I planning to do with my grad degree? My degree was a little weird because I took there are a lot of counseling courses built into it, a lot of diversity courses built into it. So I really wanted to work for a very diverse population. I am first generation, so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to go into higher ed administration, to support those kind of populations. So moving forward, that will be essentially my guide. I also went into higher ed administration because it's higher education. So if I wanted to make that flip to the faculty side, if I wanted to teach as an adjunct or pursue my PhD, that was always on the table too. And some colleges, particularly the private ones, will offer tuition remission or even a free ride in some cases if you want to get an additional degree. So there was a financial incentive too for that decision. So
my law degree has been just huge for this corporation I'm involved with, just because there's so many legal issues you run into with a new business that's developing, in front of you. But the intellectual property stuff is probably the biggest takeaway from my JD, which is why I want to get my master's in law, to kind of further my understanding of trademark and the different nuances of intellectual property, because the cyberspace is still developing, and therefore a lot of it is theoretical. So moving into this kind of thing, you have to prepare arguments that haven't been argued before. So I feel that the law degree is preparing me to agree not just to use what I've already learned, but come up with stuff that hasn't yet been argued. So it's been valuable thus far.
Great. And then the next question, they asked about the new major, which was just recently implemented here. Their question is, what is your familiarity with the new major, and what advice would you give to someone about their course of study in the newly designed major?
All right. So I understand that the new major has a series of concentrations instead of you have to pick from the categories. So I am, first of all, super jealous about that because I wish that existed when I was at Eastern, especially when I was looking into applying to graduate school programs. I think it would have been really helpful for me to pick a niche and stick with it. And I think that it's really advantageous, especially when you look at what the programs are looking for. I think Eastern definitely has a leg up on that because a lot of schools just have English programs or writing, and I think it's amazing for students to be able to pick what they're interested in. I mean, personally, I probably would have picked rhetoric and composition or something because I was a writing tutor at Eastern, and I just love that field. So that would have been great if I could have picked another one or another one, maybe stayed here forever. I also would have done that as well. So yeah, I would suggest picking something that you like and are interested in and sticking with it.
My advice, I guess, would just definitely be, like Lauren said, just pick something that you're really, really interested in. I don't know too much of how much you have to actually like stick with your pathway rather than adventuring out, but I also think that it would look really good. When you're going to apply to grad school, that it also will give you a leg up and it will look really good, especially if that's what you're going to continue to work on. So.
Yeah, I think a concentration would be great. Is going to look great applying to grad school, and I am jealous as well because I think I spent a lot of time not knowing what classes to take and what I wanted to do. So having a concentration, I think, is very helpful.
I love the concentration thing, like everyone else. I'm a little jealous, but I guess any advice? I didn't get to read over every concentration super closely, but when I was there, we had 2 required electives. Like, we had to take at least 2 electives, so it could be any English class of your choice, I guess. And I don't know if that's still a thing, so if it's not, ignore what I'm about to say. But I would also recommend for those 2 electives, or if you have just the extra time to take a class, to step outside of your concentration too. Obviously step outside it for something you like, but I think that would also look good on a resume. So they say, well, this is their one thing, but we know that they can do this too, or that they have other interests. And again, I think it gives you a more complete look when you enter grad school, and you have that little advantage because like you're in a writing program, but you also know a little bit about literary criticism or linguistics or whatever, or creative nonfiction, even though you're in a fiction program. So don't be afraid to like step out once in a while.
I don't know. I guess I'm of 2 minds on the track thing. I think that it's good to have the tracks, and but if I was a student, it would be really hard for me to decide. I guess on some level, I'd say think about these things. Like, take what sounds good to you, and what you want to learn about, and who you want to learn from. And I'd say repeat classes with people that you feel that you are attracted to their mind and you want to know how they think, because I think it's important to take a couple different classes with the same professor. I did that, and I think I took like 3 classes with Terracchio. I took several classes with Steve. I think that's important, and that doesn't necessarily relate to concentration. So, find people you want to learn from, and be aware of the requirements. Check the boxes. Work to fulfill them. Work to stay on time. But don't be afraid to take an intellectual detour, because this is a time in your life when you can really do that. You can't always do that in grad school. Because you're very special. Depending on your grad program, you're very specialized. So now's the time to kind of take some fun stuff. Okay.
I agree with that. I think now is the time to experiment, so to say, to try different things, to get a sense of what you like and you don't like, because it's the perfect structure for it. I like the idea of having concentrations. But I also like having that ability to try different things too. And I looked at the program requirements. There definitely is some flexibility. I remember that I was actually, as my program requirements, I was forced to take an intro to poetry class with Dr. Flood, and I did not want to take poetry. I am not of the creative writing mind, and I just didn't want to do it. But I ended up really liking it, and I had a really, really great experience with him, and that definitely opened doors to me being more receptive to Dr. DeRosa's creative nonfiction class. So I definitely think it's good to try things that you may not necessarily think you like either, just to get a sense of what it's about.
Yeah, I agree with a lot that was said. I think that the concentration is great when you're ready for it. I, like most other undergraduate students, came into Eastern thinking I was going to be a billion different things. And the worst thing that you can do is put yourself in a corner that isolates you from other things before you're ready to be isolated in that corner. Once you find your area and you're comfortable with that and you're sure that's where you want to be, it's great. But you don't want to jump the gun on that because, like everyone else said, you try things out and you love it. I, too, was in a poetry class that I didn't want to take at first. But, Joe Bolton's The Last Nostalgia is one of my favorite books of all time now, just because I had to be experienced. I had to put that in front of me. So it's good to try things, and when you're ready after trying enough things, the concentration is really valuable.
All right, great. So there's some mixed opinions. Some it's really good. Some it's, you got to try some stuff and then you'll know. I think a lot of that is very, very true for most of the students who are getting into the new concentrations. The last question that the 202 students had, they earmarked just for Sam, but I think it would be really interesting if everyone kind of answered it. So we'll go with Sam first and then kind of work backwards. The question they asked was, how much time did you spend studying in law school each week? And I think we could even expand it to how much work is grad school, just so we can get kind of a feeling of how much work it really is.
So that's a loaded question there. Your first year of law school, you'll think about leaving often, just that you can't do it, you're going to break. But, you plug through it and it gets easier. But it's such a different way of learning. So in law school, they have the Socratic method, which is you're sitting there in class and the professor just calls on whoever they want at any time, ask any question, and if you don't really give them the answer that they're looking for, you maybe get another chance, but if not, they'll ask you to leave. I mean, if you're not prepared for class, they don't want you there. So think of what your homework is like knowing you're walking into that the next day. You want to know every word, every line of every case you're reading. You need to know every detail in case you get asked that question. Because these classes that have 75 people, you don't want to get up and have to walk out in front of all your peers because you were unprepared. So I would say, on average, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a night you're reading, and then you have anywhere from 4 to 6 hours of class a day, on top of clinics and externships that are during the year. So, I mean, it's a lot of work, but you get into a groove of it, and you start to learn how to prioritize things and how to multitask. So it seems daunting, but it gets easier if anyone here is interested in law school.
My academic part of it, the research and the writing, for me, wasn't that bad at all. I think I was super prepared coming out of Eastern, and I don't think it was as academically intense as a law school degree or someone going into a PhD program. My toughest part of grad school, and I mentioned this before, was managing all my internship and my externship and my assistantship experiences. That was built into the program itself, and that's how it was designed, so that the bulk of your work was going toward all of this experience. That was great and valuable, but it definitely, you had to manage your time or you would burn out. So that was my experience from my grad program.
Yeah. Grad school is sort of like feet to the fire for me. I mean, because I entered a PhD program, there really wasn't a distinction between, you're just a master's student. Everybody was a PhD student there. So, I mean, for me, it was really, I was in classes with people that had master's degrees and were doing coursework for their PhD. So that was I think, different than some people. It was fast-paced, but I kind of like that. And the classes were very small, 10, 15 people, very similar to like an exit seminar that you take here. So, being prepared and speaking in class is really important. So doing the readings is really important. And I'd say, like, the readings, I remember my first semester of grad school, one class we read a theoretical book every week, and we read 5 to 7 scholarly articles for like a 3-hour class. So plus I taught 2 classes. So it was like kind of learning how to be a teacher and learning how to be a graduate student, and that was a lot of work, but things get easier. I was doing that shtick for 7 years, so by like year 7, I was like, psh, I'm out, right? I could like manage my time like a lot better than like on the first go. There's a learning curve with even with grading, you're grading student papers. Like when you first start grading, you're like, what do I do? But then like after, your first semester teaching, you figure it out, right? So I think that be gentle with yourself, because you're gonna like come up against things that you've never done before, and there's always a learning curve with that. And also be smart and look to people that, like, look for the adultier adults. Like, look to the people that have that experience, that are going to help you, like get through, because they've done it on some level. So that's also really helpful. Look for people that are smarter than you, because they'll push you.
Okay. Well, I guess in terms of workload, I took 4 classes my first semester, which I guess you're not supposed to do.
That's intense.
Yeah. So that was a lot of work. It was, we had to read a book a week. We had workshop, depending on whose workshop you were in. It was like every 3 weeks you were submitting 25-page papers. And then I had an Italian class with normal, like, language class requirements, homework every week, and a film class. So we were writing short responses and readings to all the films we were watching. So I couldn't even think to, like, enumerate, like, how much time was spent in that. But if you're looking at grad school and you're thinking, maybe I should take 4 classes, maybe you shouldn't. Just think a little bit harder about that, because that was a lot of work. And this semester I'm actually only taking 2 semesters, but 2 classes. But it feels like the same amount of work, because like my lit class, it's a different professor. We're reading more experimental books, so sometimes they're bigger, they take more time to get through. And our writing workshop, now that we've been here for a semester, our professors are expecting more out of us, so we're writing more. So it still feels like I'm doing the same amount of work at home, so it's a lot. Make time for yourself to work.
It's kind of terrifying to try to quantify how much reading I do, but all of my grad classes are seminars, so maximum probably 15 people, usually not 15, but so you have to really do the reading and understand what you're talking about, because you can't really hide in those classes. So I'd say for my classes and not teaching, I read anywhere from like 5 to 10 books a week and probably write about 10 to 15 pages. And that's a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to do all of that work. But it does get easier. My first semester, I was terrified, and it was so much work, and I didn't know if I wanted to keep going with it. But then second semester, you kind of realize like what's important and how to manage your time better.
Well, in my first semester, I wasn't working. I was just taking 3 classes, so I had all the time in the world. I mean, the classes were tough, but I had plenty of free time. And then my second semester, I got an assistantship, and I don't say this to scare anyone, but my life just turned upside down, and I do nothing but eat, breathe, sleep, schoolwork. And I don't say it to. The reason I say I don't say it to scare anyone is because I really, truly wouldn't have it any other way. So that first semester, I was just taking courses, but I really wasn't that involved in the department. I really wasn't doing anything. I was kind of going to class and then going home. Now I serve as the graduate student president, so I'm extremely involved and busy with that. I run the colloquium series. I am running a conference right now. I'm the representative to the department. And while it truly does consume every minute of every day for me, I truly wouldn't have it any other way, because when you're in these experiences, you find people that are in the same experience with you. You bond with them. They become your entire life. I'm with these people all the time. Being so involved has made me, lifetime friends that I know will be in the same career path as me, and we'll be going through this together forever. So I guess my advice is busy isn't necessarily a bad thing. And just, find those people, find those friends who are just as busy and, I don't want to say miserable, but sometimes miserable as you are, and they will get you through everything.
So I can also kind of echo that. I'm teaching full time and also in grad school full time. I go to class about 6 hours a week. It's a new program, so they're kind of fleshing out, the program still in a lot of ways, but it's really interesting because, I felt like the work at Eastern really prepared me for it. I think it's almost like the same level that you get in like a senior seminar. Culture of War, what? Shout out Dr. McNeil. So I found that was pretty easy, but again, I don't have a lot of time. Like I told my students what I do the other day, and they were like, "Oh, that's boring." And I was like, I know, but because I commute an hour to work every day, and then I commute an hour home, and then I have that like few hours after class where I'll eat. I'll usually read some media books, write a paper real quick, or edit a paper real quick, and then go to class. And then Mondays and Wednesdays I'm usually either working on grading papers or doing my grad school work. And Saturday and Sunday, it's kind of the same thing. Like I'll definitely, I think it's really important to take some time for yourself too, even as you're going a little crazy with all the work that you have. But really, I think it's manageable, especially when you get in the swing of things, because you got to do what you got to do. And I'm going to be done with my program in August, so it's only a year program, and I'm very excited about that because then I have. The road is open. I'll use a metaphor right there.
All right. And then just as one kind of ending question before we open up the floor to Q&A, what kind of advice would you give to Eastern students who are unsure whether or not they want to go to grad school or what they want to study in grad school? What were some of the strategies you used to figure out what you wanted to specialize in? And then looking back at your time in the English department at Eastern, what would you tell the students so they can maximize their time here? We can go backwards again if you don't want to answer twice in a row. Starting with Sam.
Sure. So I think if you're thinking about grad school, the best thing you could do is to educate yourself. Talk to people who are in grad school, come to things like this, because there's no better way of learning what it's actually like than speaking to someone who's in it at the moment. The biggest thing that I can say about grad school is get it done earlier than later, because I have a lot of peers in law school who took 5-10 years off after undergrad and then decided they wanted to be a lawyer and went to law school, but now they have families, they have children, they have full-time jobs that they have to manage. So I think if grad school is something you're really considering, do it. Don't put it off and think I'll make some money and then come back to it. It's better to get it done earlier than later, in my opinion.
I think I was going to say I think it's okay for you to take a year off, maybe not five or six, because he's right. You have obligations after that can become obstacles, but especially if you're not sure what program you want to go into, taking that year, like a gap year, working some kind of job, getting a sense of just figuring it out, giving yourself time, because I don't think that, everything that's going on your senior year of undergrad, and then applying for grad school at the same time really allows you that kind of time to think things out. So I would recommend you take a year if you're really undecided. And then as for advice while you're here, I think it is so important to do things outside of your program curriculum. So take advantage of internships, do part-time jobs within the field, get a lot of experience, because not only will that make you more marketable, allow you to put more things on your resume, you're going to get a sense of what you like and what you don't like. And I think that's so important to have that experience while you're in undergrad, while you have this time to experience, than after undergrad when you're going from job to job trying to figure out what you want to do.
Okay. So I would say that there's a big distinction between getting a master's and a PhD, and I think you should really reflect on that distinction going into it. For me, it was the right decision to go straight through, and I'm really happy with where I am. But I don't think that it's right for everybody, and I think that you have a heart of hearts with yourself about what you want and where you want to be. And in terms of like gap years, whatever, sometimes people stumble upon what they want to do later, and that's okay, right? I think that, especially in a PhD program, you have a range of people that I had a range of people that I studied with. I was the youngest person in my PhD program, but there was two women that I was very close with who were in their 40s who were getting their PhDs. And I think that diversity in age is actually really important to the academy and something that, I don't know, I think that it's okay if you decide later in life that you want to go back to school. So I think it's just deciding when is important, based on your schedule and your life and what you want to accomplish. It's a very individualized decision, so that's my advice on that.
Yeah. I took a year off, and it gave me a chance to save a ton of money, which was helpful, and figure out where I wanted to be, what the advantages were of each program. And I think you're right. If I had tried to do that all my senior year, I would have crashed and burned. I was so busy with everything. And that gave me a chance, to talk with a lot of professors about doing it in the first place. And like Professor Taracchio had put the idea in my head in the first place, which I think by accident, because he was just like, it was, it's 2 years to write your book. And I was kind of like, well, that sounds nice. I think I'd like to do that. And then I actually started researching and just talking to professors and saying, do you think I could do this? And I think everybody said yes, which was nice. So I guess my advice for people still going through Eastern now would be the same, take advantage of internships, TAing. I'm a TA at Parsons now in an illustrations class, believe it or not. And when I got it, everybody was really surprised because I said, well, you have to have experience as a TA. No one in our program has experience as a TA. How did you get that? And I TA'd twice here, and I didn't, I put it on my resume, but I didn't really realize that would be such a big deciding factor for me. So it gives you, I guess it makes you kind of luckier than the other people in ways that you don't even predict when you're doing it. But it's nice.
So I definitely recommend taking perhaps a year off, something that I did, and especially if you're unsure, because I found that, at least for me, grad school is pretty much all-encompassing in my life. So going into that, I think you need to know, and if you're unsure, and especially right after senior year when people are usually burnt out, it's hard to start new again right away. So I'd recommend taking a year. And for, I didn't really, besides wanting to study literature, I didn't really know what I wanted to study or what time period generally. So grad school actually helped me to specify that. And I would also suggest internships, TAing, something I never did, but internships definitely are very helpful.
My biggest piece of advice would be to do it for the right reason. I wouldn't go to grad school because you're trying to avoid getting a job or for any other reason. I guess that's one of the biggest reasons maybe people go. But do it for the right reason because it's a total lifestyle change and it's not something to take lightly. So make sure you know why you want to go and what your end goal is. And I also have picking the right program is also extremely important. So if you want to do a degree in creative writing, just because a school has a program in creative writing doesn't mean it's the right program for you, especially if you're doing a PhD. So definitely do your research on what kind of programs you want to go to and make sure that the faculty matches your interests and just really do your research.
So my advice would be to current Eastern students to get as involved as you can outside the English major and inside the English major, because you'll find different diverse experiences. Because obviously, as you can see from everybody up here, this degree is very diverse and you can do a lot of different things with it. And so I mean, I think if you're social on campus and you talk to a lot of people and you're passionate about something, then that will lead you to where you want to go, even if you have no idea what you want to do after college. And so I kind of, I took off 3 years after I graduated from Eastern. And basically, my reason for taking it off was it would have been so crazy insane to take a master's program while teaching at that time. I mean, my first year I was a long-term sub in 2 different positions. So I taught, in that year I taught 9, 10, 11, 12, and AP English. And so I would not recommend undertaking graduate studies for teachers at that time. I would say get a few years underneath your belt and then see what you're interested in and passionate about, and then follow that, because it will just be too much, because I was planning curriculum and planning assessments every night till like 10 o'clock at that point, so there would have been no time for graduate school work. Whereas now that I'm 3 years in, I can I know my curriculum, and so I can kind of put that on like autopilot almost, because I understand it and I can work through it and kind of take the time for me after school to work on my graduate studies.
All right, thanks guys. At this point, we have about 25 minutes left, so we're going to open up the floor for Q&As. Whoever has a question for these guys, you can raise your hand. Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
Looking back to where you were when you finished your undergraduate degree, is this where you expected to be at that point, or have you diverged from where you thought you were going to be when you finished your undergraduate?
I'll start. All right, so very good question. Okay, so basically, I would say that this is not where I expected to be in terms of the degree program that I chose, because I did apply to a number of English, rhetoric, and composition programs for my master's degree, and I kind of decided that this program, it was a new program at Sacred Heart, was going to be the best one, and I can also continue teaching. So going into media studies was kind of it was just an excellent experience. I mean, I would have never thought that I would be in a communications department, but I really actually enjoy it, and I can see like the different things that I can do with it, and also use it with my students too. So it's been good, even though I didn't really expect to be here.
I would say I definitely am where I thought that I would be, but the whole kind of journey to get to this point, I graduated 2 years ago, so I am where I thought I would be, but the kind of pathway to this point has definitely been different than I thought it would be. I've kind of switched my concentration from what I thought I was going to do. I've definitely had many days where I've thought that I was going to totally change my career goals, and right now I'm kind of back to where I started, but there have been so many times where things have just kind of gone differently. But as of now, I'm finishing my master's, and that's where I wanted to be at this point. So I'm where I wanted to be.
I thought about grad school in undergrad, but I didn't think that I was going to go like as quickly as I did, and then I ended up taking a job that came from an internship right after college that I ended up not liking as much as I thought I would, and that kind of led into grad school. So no, I don't think while I was at Eastern I thought I was going to go straight into grad school.
I don't know if I really thought that much about it. I think I'm further than where I thought I would be, just because I didn't think that grad school was like a thing until Professor Tracchio was like, you can write your book. And I was like, that sounds great. So I guess I'm ahead of my own plan, which is good.
Yeah, I'm where I thought I wanted to be. I think that I think sometimes with the journey, you're just you're 1 year at a time. Oh, there's this thing called comps. What's that? Oh, I had to write a dissertation. What's that? So there's when you're in different stages, for me it was always a surprise. Like, oh, what is this thing? Right? But I think that I think that's. I'm glad I'm happy where I am right now. But there's a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears in that journey, and I'm happy to like talk more about that. But yeah, academia is a weird place.
I had no idea that I would be here where I am now. I basically made it up as I went along. And when I was an undergrad, I was very, very shy. If you had told me that I would be sitting here on a panel talking to a bunch of people, I would laugh at you. So I've definitely been challenged, and I'm definitely on a journey. It'd be interesting to see where I end up. And I guess we'll just see what happens. I try not to make a plan because you'll find out that life will throw you curveballs. Opportunities will just appear, and then you'll just go in a completely different direction than what you were anticipating. So I just leave it up to fate and see where I end up.
It's actually interesting for me because I came into Eastern as a business administration major, and I think I got through 2 classes of microeconomics and said, absolutely not. There's no way. And I did English, and I loved it, but I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And it wasn't until I think it was DeRosa's class, I said to her, I think I'm going to go to law school. And she said, oh, yeah? And I said, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. And that was when it started. So it got to the point where, I think it was the beginning of my junior year, I quit the rugby team to study for the LSATs and took a job bouncing at Blarney's to pay for my LSAT course. So, interesting enough, after law school, I'm back at business. So it's kind of come full circle, just in a different way.
All right, great. Any other questions from the audience? Don't be shy.
As someone who's actually considered going into the law profession, is there anything specifically that you found within your, I know you've gone over it somewhat, but is there anything particular that really surprised you in its usefulness with the law degree, or something that you think one should consider to pay more attention to, like any sort of concentration or class that you might find helpful?
So something that you're going to, if you do go into the law career, that you're going to realize is that lawyers make up words all the time. Lawyers, judges, they just make up words. If they need a word, they make it up. So I guess there's an element of creative writing there that if something isn't there, put it there. The grammar is huge. I mean, everything you do is cited so specifically that if you don't have that capacity for absorbing those rules, you're going to run into a lot of issues, because sloppy writing, judges and other lawyers, they won't even give it the time of the day. I mean, they just won't. It's not worth it to them. So I think really focus on the fundamentals of writing rather than, I guess focus on the foundation instead of the house that's going to be built on the foundation, because you're not going to know what that is until you get there. So if that makes sense. I know it's a little abstract, sorry.
All right, great. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, while you guys think, I have one for Christian. Could you please explain your master's thesis topic? It's very interesting. Did anything maybe at Eastern help guide you there, or was it all grad school?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I'm starting to write it tomorrow, so I suppose I should be able to talk about it.
Pre-writing here.
Yeah, maybe Sunday. It's 19th century Christmas fiction, but it's because I like Dickens' like Christmas Carol so much, and so many people do a lot of research on that. But no, after A Christmas Carol, there was like a huge flood of Christmas literature in magazines, but also novels as well. And a lot of that stuff's out of print now, and there's not a lot of research that's done on it. But it's kind of I found it interesting because we always say that Dickens kind of invented like the Christmas that we celebrate now, or at least was instrumental in it, and so was Washington Irving. But all these other authors that are kind of forgotten now also kind of help do it. So I'm writing. How do I say this? I'm writing about. My argument is that the fiction in London and in New England and in the Southern America basically took puritanical conversion narratives and secularized them.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
All right. How about now? Anyone has any questions for these guys? Anybody? Don't let me monopolize, because I have questions. I can just keep going. I was very curious about these guys. All right, so how about one for, let's see, which one's good? All right, how about one for Ashley? Many English majors find linguistics very challenging. How did you decide to specialize in linguistics in graduate school, and how did your experiences at Eastern help you with this decision?
Well, I love telling the story, so I'll make it quick. But when I was in 202, when I was 17 years old in 2010, so my first semester here, we had a guest professor who was Dr. Tapia, but she came in with this list of, well, let me preface this by saying I came here to be a high school teacher, and that's all I ever thought that I would do. That's the only thing I had in mind. And anyways, in this class, when I was a freshman, she came in and gave this kind of presentation on linguistics, and I just kind of kept it in the back of my mind, but I wanted to be a teacher. That's all I thought I would do. And then I got into the teaching program, and I just found that it wasn't for me. There's nothing wrong with it, but I wasn't suited for it. And then I was in her classes because they're required for the teaching program, and I found that like while I was at my teaching clinicals, I was actually thinking way more about the stuff I was doing in her class than my actual clinicals. So I figured that's probably not a good thing. So that's kind of what got me into it, and working with her she was so helpful. She's the only one here who studies that, so she was incredibly helpful to me throughout the entire process. And in terms of the challenge of it, I don't really have much to say other than it gets way harder. So I can't sugarcoat it. It's a lot harder than anything I ever did here. But if it's something you're interested in, you won't mind putting that effort into it. And there's a lot of other things to linguistics other than I think that maybe it's in the mindset that it's kind of just like grammar, but that's not, that's just a teeny little portion of it. I do a lot of work on like language documentation and working with under-resourced languages, so there's a lot more to it than what we have the opportunity to see here. So.
We have the conceptual metaphor seminar going on right now, so we're on that side of it. All right, how about now? Any questions? Anybody? Come on, you can do it. No? I can come up with another one. I'm prepared. How about one for Lauren? What are some of the rewards and challenges of teaching at the secondary level in middle school? Do you feel your time here at Eastern, specifically in the English department, adequately prepared you for your teaching position? Please explain.
All right. Okay. So I would say the background knowledge that I teach about that I learned at Eastern really helps me out in my classroom because I can just pull things up. You wouldn't even believe what I can dust off in a pinch. But, it becomes very useful when you're trying to entertain like 14-year-olds with a lesson. And so I would say, the writing tutoring skills were immensely helpful because obviously when you're trying to teach a classroom of 25 students to teach versus one, it's very difficult. Getting that one person down in the writing center before I went to a huge classroom of kids was really excellent because then you had to learn how to translate those skills in the classroom, but I already had them down because I was working in the writing center. I TA'd as well for Dr. James's class for 202, and that helped out a lot too because I got to teach some lessons, facilitate some discussions, so that was fantastic as well. It's very interesting to go out into the workforce because it's a different experience. I'm reminiscing as I'm on the campus and I used to wake up at 9 o'clock every day. But it's a routine that you get down. What are some things that did not teach? I would say that the classroom management skills are really important to have, and I don't think the education program even taught me that either. And again, I'm not bashing the education program, but I just think that when you're in the classroom, it's going to be a very different experience than what you expect, and also different than student teaching because you have a life vest right there to say, "Oh, I'm going to pick you up," when 12-year-olds are screaming, which I was with 7th graders, so that was a thing. But really, you really have to be stringent, and you have to know your boundaries. But also, the thing about not smiling till December is a myth. So you can have a little bit of fun with your students, but you got to draw the line. Especially, I like to remind them no touching, no rabble rousing in class. Like you got to keep them on like a short leash, but also that like learning is fun. It is fun, and it's something that should fill someone up with happiness. That's what I think. I know. Is this just an ad? Like a really happy ad? I don't know. A really happy PSA. It's a thing.
Okay. All right. Who has a question now? You just only have 12 minutes left with these guys. This is your chance. Cody, you have another one?
Yeah, I've heard a few times from some of you guys and a bunch of different people to do research into the specific program that you're thinking about going into before you do that. But what exactly, I guess, what exactly is involved in that? Like, how did you all go about, if you did, researching the specific programs at the different schools that you wanted to go into, or finding them in general?
Oh, I'll start.
Sure.
Well, for me, I got a master's first, so before I even thought about entering into a PhD program. So for me, that was kind of the stepping stone into between undergrad and finding the right program for me, because in a master's program, you're starting to do research, but you're not dedicating your entire life to your research. So I don't think for a master's program, it's as important to find that perfect program with the perfect faculty doing exactly what you want to do. So for me, this is, as a master's student right now, this is the kind of time that I'm looking at, that I'm doing this kind of researching into different programs. So if you're an undergrad and you don't know exactly what you want to do, I guess I really would suggest going with a master's program first, and then while you're there, you'll kind of be able to fine-tune exactly what you want to do, and there'll be faculty there who will be really willing to help you find a perfect program for you.
I guess for me, just like thinking of places to look in the first place, I just got that from talking to professors. Well, half talking to professors and half being like, oh, I've heard of the new school. Oh, hey, they have a writing program. Huh, that's cool. So some of it was just people were saying, oh, Amherst has a great program, Brown has a great program, and then half of it was me just saying, well, I've heard of this school. And then, of course, you want to go through their sites. And one of my judgment things, which may or may not have been fair, was how well the site was designed, because I think that tells a lot about this school. If it's easy to find that information, like here's our program information, here's this, what's life like as a student, I got a bad feeling on schools I looked at, and that information was not really, really easy to find. So that might be a good, helpful thing to narrow your search down to.
Like all fields have national conferences, so looking at those conferences and seeing what programs are represented there. I think that the advice I got from, I forget who gave this advice, was like, oh, at C's, which is the program for RetCom, if the program has a party or sponsors a party, you should maybe like look on their website. And I was like, it was actually the correct advice. Like whoever told me that advice, I love you. And I just looked at all the programs that had parties at the national conference and their websites, and then I think once you kind of like look at the mission statements and kind of get a sense of the school, another step is contacting the administrative assistants at those schools to see if there's any grad students that would be willing to answer questions for you. At U of A, we had that where our admin assistant would send out like, this person's interested in this, like would anyone like to talk to Jill about potentially coming to our program? And I don't know if all programs work like that, but it is good to get a sense of those students that are currently in that program, how they like it, what they're doing. Do they regret their decision? That's probably, and I think grad students who are in their programs are going to be like more real with you than talking to faculty in those programs, because faculty want you to go, whereas grad students will give you the real look at what's going on the ground, and they know it. I was in contact with alumni from here who went to U of A, Holly Mandy's Ryan, and she was really great with emailing me. Another thing is like maybe contacting alumni like us from Eastern who have been to graduate school. If someone sent me an email about graduate school, I would respond to them and be really friendly. So that's also another resource that wouldn't necessarily think would be available to you, but is through the network of love here. So yeah. Yeah.
For the law student, I got a quick one, or the prospective law student. The book Getting to Maybe was what I bought when I was interested in law school, because it's all about the legal education and really what it's all about. And it illustrates the law as this series of forks, like you're going down a road, and legal analysis is the series of forks. Is the law more likely to go left or right? You go right, you hit another one, and it goes down this huge tree until eventually you get to maybe, where you're confident enough that this is where I'm going to end up if I take this route. And that's what legal education is. It's all about guessing based on what has happened in the past.
My advice would be to use your resources at Eastern before you go, because I've had so much help from my professors here, and that was so immensely helpful from like Dr. DeRosa and Dr. Rosenberg. It's been a really interesting journey, and keeping in touch with them was fantastic. So I would say forge bonds with your professors here that will help you out down the road. I mean, because a website is one thing, but they have experiences with their graduate programs, and they also know, some things, and they can help you out with that. I mean, besides doing research, because obviously you do have to go to their websites and check on that, but it's been immensely helpful to have, guardians.
Anybody else? All right. How about another question? Yep, in the back.
I'll throw one in. I'm one of the new hires that came in 2 years ago in 2014, and so I guess I'm going to be asking a question from a little bit different vantage point. This is a time that in the department we're trying to come up with the new concentrations, the new classes, the idea of where we want to take the program in the future. We've talked a lot about what Eastern prepared you to do. I guess I'm going to ask a slightly different question. What do you wish we had been able to do for you? What aspects do you feel we're missing? What things would you like to see offered in the future? What would have been a benefit for you that you feel that our classes could better address in the future, or any gaps that you felt were there? Is there anything that we can continue to do better for our students in the future to prepare the next generation for coming into graduate work, for doing things like that? Is there anything that you would say now, looking back on it, that you wish you'd had, or you feel that we could do better for students in the future?
Do you want to go in a row?
I'll take the lead.
Okay.
So just from my law school perspective, I didn't even know pre-law was an option until I went looking for it. So as an English, for an English degree, knowing that that's an option is something that I feel they should know about, because it could allow them to tailor their course selections earlier on. So I was cramming a lot of pre-law stuff. I think it was a minor. I don't know if it's an option as a major now, but I was cramming that all into like my last, 3 semesters, because I didn't know it was available until that time. So I think knowing earlier on that that's an option, I think it just broadly for English majors to know the different options. They don't just have to be teachers or writers. They could do a bunch of different things with the degree is important, because you don't know until someone tells you, essentially.
As I mentioned before, when I was an undergrad, I was super shy. I would sit in the back of the class. I would not say a single word. The instructors would write on my paper, please share your ideas in class. And it wasn't until I went into grad school and I was forced to talk in front of people. I was forced to teach classes. I was, in my current job, have to go out to high schools and introduce myself and say, hi, here's what I have to share with you. It wasn't until I was forced to do that I really started to come out of my shell. And I feel like I could have done that in undergrad too, had I more opportunities to do so. So I would like to see that built more into the curriculum.
I don't know. I would say that I maybe would have liked to have engaged more primary sources on the level of theory, because when I went to grad school, that was it'd be like, let's read a whole book by Derrida, and I wasn't ready for that on a lot of levels. But I don't know. Other than that, maybe I wasn't ready for that theory then either. So there's also that consideration of where you should get that sort of exposure of theory, and maybe for some some parts in English it's more important than others. So I think that's where I was lacking when I came in, and I guess just maybe like more writing. I think writing intensive classes are really important. Maybe that's my bias, but I think that taking an exam isn't going to help you as much as writing a paper. So I think WAC and WID are like really important on that level, and like thinking about how to incorporate more writing into the classes that for undergrads. Yeah, that's all I have. I think I was really well prepared, so I don't have much to say on that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was pretty well prepared too. The only thing I could think of that would have been cool to see a lot more of, and again, I haven't been here for 2 years, so it's probably part of the curriculum now, a lot more, just more chances to see like visual narratives like graphic novels or video games, because as Professor Frostino and Professor DeRosa know, I was really interested in that kind of stuff, and I think their 2 classes were really the only opportunity I got to talk about those things or share those things with other students. So, yeah.
I guess for literary studies, the thing, to reiterate what you said, definitely theory, which I did not realize was so heavily emphasized in grad school. And it was my first grad class day. I came in and they threw Derrida at me, and I came out of that class like shell-shocked. I think I still am, but definitely a lot more like literary and critical theory, I think, would be helpful.
For me, I don't really have much to say because I do think that I was really well prepared, but I guess at the school I'm at right now, I see a lot of their undergrads in the program at my school conducting a lot of their own independent research and having these opportunities to do a lot of research that I'm hesitant to even bring that up as something I'd like to see in this department, because that could have just completely been my own lack of ambition to go out there and do it myself. But I think I probably would have benefited from some opportunities to really produce my own research, and I didn't do much of that. But I know that a lot of my friends who went here who did do that were in the honors program, so that could be a way to do it. I wasn't in the honors program, but I really would have benefited from having presented at undergraduate conferences and kind of things like that.
I agree also with the visual composition and, really analyzing that. That's been helpful in my graduate degree generally to kind of look at, because obviously, even the field of English is just moving so rapidly towards different types of media, and so I think it's wonderful to incorporate like not just literature but also film and whatnot. So I think Eastern actually does a really good job of that, and it really prepared me for my graduate degree. The other thing is concentrations. So I think you're already there, which is fantastic to think about this department and where it's moving.
So it's 4:30 now. Is there any other final questions that anyone wants to ask before the event closes? All right. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all for coming. It's been great.